maybe a fourth. They're coming at him, he's been 6 and 7. Top to Morgans has been an 8. Oh, wow. No.
SuperCoach365 podcast coming to you ahead of round 23. Geez, the season's coming to a close at a rapid rate. Ryan and Tommy back with you here on the back of a week off. Not for the reasons that we'd want to be taking a week off, Tommy, but good to be back talking some SuperCoach this week.
No, it is. It feels like a long time since we've done this. Only 2 weeks, but I guess a lot has happened, as always, in footy and in SuperCoach, and 3 weeks left. Very, very important weeks. Hopefully we still have some trades remaining.
3 weeks left in the season, of course. If you are playing your head-to-head leagues, which most of us are, of course, preliminary final weeks. Tommy, in our classic league, Tommy's friends, if you've joined it, not many have because you don't have many friends. But you're through to the final. I'm playing the prelim this week, so you've got a week off. Anyway, good luck to those playing their finals this week. Of course, draft leagues as well. Things heating up in the SuperCoach game. We'll talk round 23 very, very soon, but let's have a look back at round 22. Tommy, how did you fare last week?
Not bad last week. 1225. I think it was top 10% around there. Just outside the top 1,000. 1,057. Been terrible. Other than last week, I think I'd fallen about 700 spots in 4 weeks, so pretty dismal. But hopefully we can get back into the top 1,000 before the year's end. How are you going?
It doesn't paint a good picture there. You shit can yourself with 12.25, and I only had 12.23, so I was quite happy with that actually. Green Arrows 5.18 season change, so I've gone up almost half of 1,000 ranks there into the top 4% overall. Still a little bit low where we'd want to be this time of year, but all in all, can't be too disappointed with that.
No, exactly right. It's been tough, and I think the next 3 weeks will be... It'll mix it up a lot because a lot of people don't have any trades left. As soon as there are injuries, they might have to play short. So I think there'll be a lot of shuffling around in spots in the last few weeks. Yeah,
some good news on the injury and the team list front. We'll get into that very, very soon. Actually, let's why not get into it right now. Of course, you're coming to us, or we're recording late on a Wednesday night. As we say, we've said a couple of times in this season, life's gotten in the way this week. But coming to you as you're listening to this, probably on Thursday morning. So kicking us off tonight, as it will be, the Rabbitohs and the Panthers. This one, a core stadium. The Rabbitohs, $1.57, topsport.com.au. The Panthers just flailing, struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. Any other time this year, if we had seen this market, we would have been very surprised to see Penrith clear outsiders, but just given their injury toll and the form of South, I think it's pretty fair. But are we buying into South? Do we think they're the real deal, or they've just been beating up some poor opposition?
What did Latrell say? Look over your shoulder, brah. Something like that. They're coming for you, brah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to, as long as they've got Latrell fit there. And I mean, we all know what Alex Johnston can do. Speaking of Penrith, their price, $2.45 this weekend. They're getting a 4-point start with Top Sport. We were sitting here at different parts this year. I think they were about $2.05 to win the comp, and we were waxing lyrical. You're getting a better price for them to win this weekend. Obviously, a much tougher challenge without Cleary and Luai. And that's what I want to ask. Are they just a shadow of themselves without their halves? And we saw even last week without Dylan Edwards how much he was missed.
I think he was a massive out last week, and they played a class team in Melbourne who played really well. But the week before, just I think 6 days before that game, they were very dominant against Canberra when they still had Cleary and Luai out. So I still think they're capable of playing good footy with them. Dylan Edwards is back. Taylor May has been named now, 24 hours out, so that's big for a lot of super coaches still owning him. And their forward pack's still looking in good shape with Kikau, Martin, Yeo all in the back row. So I think their team strips a lot fitter than last week.
Latrell, he's been named, of course, and there was some rumours or news around that he may be missing a week or two with that groin concern, but I've got here, is it a worry? Is there a need to play him this week? Obviously, they're still pushing for that top 4 berth, but top 4 is a different game without Latrell there if he is to get injured.
No, I think he should play if he can. I think they need to keep this momentum going. A loss this week would obviously put the brakes on what they've been doing, and it sounds ridiculous, but 3 losses, they could still miss the top 8, so they still need to make sure they keep winning.
Crazy, isn't it? This time of year, there's a couple of implications of games this weekend, and this one will be a big way to kick us off here in round 23, and a couple of implications, as we say, to come out of that. Just before we push on, I mentioned Latrell, how good he's been in recent times. What about Cam Murray? He's really lifted his game, and he's put his team on his back, the captain.
Yeah, look, I've always rated him personally as everyone has, but probably never that highly on SuperCoach. But the last few weeks, his scoring in SuperCoach has been awesome. I brought him in last week. He got another 83 or so he's going really well, and he's not a player that's sort of impacted by fixtures. If they're playing a big team, he'll still get a big score.
Probably helps him even. He plays bigger minutes and, as we say, shoulders some of the responsibility there in the middle. Moving on, though, the first game on Friday, the Cowboys here are back at home against the Warriors. The Cowboys last week at the SCG, their woes of continuing suddenly. You talk of teams on the decline. The Cowboys certainly one of those. The punters think they can bounce back, though. $1.09 Winks-like odds here this weekend to take care of the Warriors, who themselves $7.50 outsiders.
Yeah, $1.09 looks overs to me for this
Wow.
one. I think last week that their game against the Roosters, away from home, 2 days after their former coach had just passed away, who a lot of the players played under. So I don't know if they would have been in the best mental state to play personally, but we shall see, I guess, this week. The Warriors, away from home, haven't put up much of a fight lately. So yeah, the Cowboys will definitely be using this as to springboard into the finals.
If this game was played in 2021, we'd probably, that line there of 9.5 would probably be 29.5. Just the way that the game was played last year, and players like Scott Drinkwater and Valentine Holmes and even their winger here I've mentioned, Murray Taulagi, they're guys which could put on a score this weekend and quite quickly, and Drinkwater probably heads that charge. And we'll talk captains a little bit later, but I'm sure that he's a name that people will be looking towards this weekend if they are owning him.
Yeah, well, as someone who doesn't own Drinkwater or Holmes, this is a game I'm really worried about because, it's really good on paper for Drinkwater. He's been flying, other than last week, he's been flying Holmes as well with his goal kicking. So, yeah, absolutely vice-captain options. And we'll get to that in our captain score, as you say.
Warriors themselves, I say they're at a bit of a price there. I'm not surprised they're rank outsiders here. Big away trip to Townsville, and obviously the form this year hasn't stacked up. But a good win last week. Where's that sort of been all year? And Sean Johnson even showing glimpses of his former self, winding back the clock to ice that game.
Yeah, it seems like they really aim up at home, which makes sense given that they barely played there since 2019. So I do see why they've done that. But can they sort of do it on the road up in the tropical heat of North Queensland? I'm not sure it's going to suit the Warriors at all. So, load up on the cows for me. And if you've got those players, like we said, maybe vice-captain options.
Yeah, dry track hopefully for the Cowboys if we're expecting points. 6 p.m. kickoff, far different conditions to the wet and slippery surface there at Mount Smart. The Warriors might find themselves in a bit of trouble there, I think. Talking about getting it done on the road, what about the Melbourne Storm? They did exactly that last week. They made the toughest road trip in rugby league out to the foot of the mountains and took care of a depleted Panthers side. Again on the road this week, albeit, they'll be in the air to Brisbane. Melbourne, $1.48 head-to-head. The Broncos, $2.65 outsiders at home. Probably a little bit of value there about the Broncos if they can make it work.
Yeah, I thought Melbourne were really impressive last week, I've got to say. I know Penrith are undermanned, but starting to look at this Melbourne 17 again, and they do have injuries, obviously, but it's still a very strong side, and I think they're starting to time their run, perhaps.
Yep, headed by Cameron Munster, who wore 6 last week, but played fullback. Hands on the footy, he just looks... This is a career best year for Munster. It has to be just how dominant he is and how involved he is. Jerome Hughes back as well, I think, or at least he's named to play at this stage. So that's a big inclusion. And what that looks like there with Nick Meaney back at fullback. Again, as you say, they're starting to put the pieces back together in Melbourne, timing their run towards the top 4.
Yeah, Jerome Hughes, is he, I guess, an option? I think a lot of people may still have Cleary on their bench. Maybe haven't sold him out, traded him out yet because there hasn't really been an option to go to. But with Hughes returning for the last 3 games of the year, is he, I guess, the most likely, or maybe a Mitch Moses?
Yeah, I think this time last year, you and I both had Hughes to finish off, and we had that combo of Hughes and Cleary. Without Cleary, obviously, Hughes you would think would be the next best, and Cherry Evans and the Manly side not playing their best footy either. So, yeah, potentially Hughes, we know what he can do when he runs the footy. Maybe just slight knock on him coming back from an injury, and I don't know, it just doesn't make for the best reading for mine, but I wouldn't knock anyone going towards Hughes.
No, I do think they have a tricky run in as well. I think they play Parramatta next week and then a tricky game in the last round as well. So it's not like smooth sailing for Hughes, but I do think, most of the points are coming through either him or Munster, so especially with Paps out. So he's definitely got some credentials.
Absolutely. Just on the Broncos quickly, they got it done last week against the Knights. I've said here, I think they won by 18 in the end, but there was a period there where the Knights looked like they could have run over the top of the Broncos. And of course, if you were holding players like, particularly Selwyn Cobbo scored a hat-trick, and Payne Haas still doing what Payne Haas does. A couple of Broncos there who are just starring still. So even despite the Broncos maybe not being the team that they were in the start or middle part of the season, they're still producing some good SuperCoach scores.
Yeah, they are, but would it be fair to say that, Payne Haas has maybe been a little underwhelming this year in Supercoach? I just think other than he got 105 a few weeks ago against Para, which when he scored a try, but, other than that, he hasn't scored above 65 since round 7. So he hasn't really set the ball on fire. And when you have players like Isaiah Papali'i and Tarpanay going huge at the front row spot, I think he's been, usurped as like a must-have in the front row role.
No, fair point, fair play. Probably doesn't have the ceiling of those other guys. Papali'i, of course, try scorer. And Tarpanay, that explosive offload and line break assist and such. Payne Haas, probably more of the run-of-the-mill front rower. Plays big minutes, does his work, but no, doesn't have the ceiling of those two. So good shout. We may reassess that when we're building our teams heading into round 1 2023. I think we'll move on though, and we'll push on to Saturday afternoon footy here. This one, CommBank Stadium, 3 p.m. kickoff. The old rivalry, Parramatta up against the Bulldogs. I say here, Eels $1.33 favourites. The Bulldogs $3.35 outsiders. The line 9.5. Eels giving that away. Now, do they deserve to be all but 10-point favourites here? Because shocking loss last week at home, and if memory serves me right, they got pumped by the Bulldogs earlier this season. So I wouldn't be diving in at the minus.
No, you'd be a brave man or perhaps a foolish one. Like you said, they lost 34-4, I think it was, against the Bulldogs maybe 8 weeks ago. So, yeah, no certainties here. I just don't know how to get a read on them. Their team on paper is great, but they just throw in so many bad performances.
The Bulldogs, they've done that in talking of bad performances for years. But, albeit the last week out, they've been pretty good in recent times. I do say here, though, they've had 3 big trips on the road. Of course, they played at the Cowboys in Bundaberg. Then they went to New Zealand, now to Parramatta. So they've done a bit of flying. The season, they can't make the finals. They probably due a letdown. Is that where the 10-point difference comes into calculations here?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess punters probably taking Parramatta on their best form, just hoping that they do show up with their best. But how would you know? We were talking about halfbacks a second ago. Mitch Moses returning. Not 100% confirmed his name, though, so hopefully he does play. I guess other than Hughes and Cherry Evans, Moses is another one that we could consider here.
Yeah, the goal kicking helps him, I think, compared to those other two as well. So if Eels can put on a score here, which in past years they would have against the Bulldogs, dry Saturday afternoon at Parramatta, it would have been a no-brainer to look at someone like a Moses. So yeah, he could be a late trade-in option if you are still holding a trade, and Cleary at the halfback slot could go in 250 on Saturday afternoon. Anything else there, Tommy? Of course, Gutherson been in somewhat of good form, but with the fullbacks we've got at our disposal, Tedesco, Latrell Mitchell and such, you wouldn't be going down the way of Captain Clint.
No, I don't think so. Probably a disappointing score last week was Matty Burton. He only got 23 in what looked on paper a good game against the Warriors. So that was disappointing. But one bold prediction out of this game: if the Eels lose, they will miss the top 8.
Righto, we've got that on the tape. So let's come back to that in 3 weeks' time. I think we also, if you're still writing this, the Top Sports season-long multi, the $7 special, we sold it like it couldn't go wrong. Sure enough, it's very well on the cusp of going wrong. But if the Bulldogs get up this week, I tell you what, Tommy, we are on. We are planning our boat party in Sydney Harbour. Just
hear me out, Eels, right? This obviously is a winnable game. They play Bulldogs, but then they're away to Broncos, home to Storm. So they're very hard games, those last 2.
Yep.
Tell you what, if they play like they did the other night, they could lose all 3.
Yeah, responsibly if you're going to find that, the Eels to miss market. Let's move on. Saturday evening, this one, 4 Pines Park, the old Brookie Oval, Manly back at home against the Sharks. Like, I couldn't believe this when I checked the markets, Top Sport this afternoon. Cronulla Sharks, away from home at Brookie, minus 11.5. I said this would have to be the first time in their history that they've been that sort of price away at Manly. They've played 42 games there in their since their inception in 1967. They've just won 6 of those games, so that's a shocking strike rate.
Dave Middleton over here. That's a good stat though. I didn't know that one. 36 losses out of 42. Sorry, I don't want to insult Dave Middleton. Yeah. No, but yeah, that's quite amazing. But I just think, just short-term memory. Manly 3 days ago lost by 30 to Gold Coast. It's such a bad form line for this game, and the Sharks, they're never that convincing. I find in games they win, but they don't win. I don't know. I never sit there thinking they can win the comp, but maybe they can put Manly away this weekend.
I thought the same. I think they led 12-0 after 12 minutes against West's Tigers, and I think it was about 24-6 or of that kind at halftime. But even still, in that second half, I mean, if Tigers could have scored one, it was game on suddenly. But no, I know what you mean. Sharks, they're doing enough, and if they are to cover here, they'll have to do a little bit more than just enough. Manly, I want to talk about Manly because we all got excited about Ruben Garrick, Ola Kawatu, potentially Cherry Evans as well. How's that easy run looking? We spoke about it here, weeks on weeks. The easy run, they've lost their last 4, and it's the worst streak in the competition. So, puts paid to that theory.
Yeah, I know. You can do all the planning in the world, but sometimes it just doesn't come off. And I think Garrick's been okay. Probably not as good as we wanted. He still got 81 the other day from memory. But yeah, overall, they just haven't delivered. Cherry Evans, not really. Ola Kawatu's been disappointing. So yeah, it has really been annoying because Manly were one of those teams that were really targeted in the business end of the year.
It's funny, isn't it? I think Manly was one and the Cowboys were another, and they're both just, they're not, the wheels haven't fallen off yet, but they're not hitting the heights that we were hoping for anyway.
No, you're right. And even, a lot of people held Penrith players and they're starting to lose as well, so it's getting tricky.
Don't listen to us. All right, Saturday evening, rounding us out. Now, this is going to be a special occasion, I think. There could be plenty of points here. The total points line, if I've got this correct, is 50.5. So punters, or at least the bookies at this rate, think that the Roosters will put on a show. They've been at the SCG. They've called it their home for the past 4 years. This is their last game there, of course, moving to the new Allianz Stadium across the road. They've won 71% of their games at the SCG. I think they've lost just something like 7 or 9 in that time. This could be a game where James Tedesco and Joey Manu just go absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's hard to make a case for the plus 22.5, really, isn't it? When you look at these teams, I think Roosters are better 13 out of 13 players starting. Like, it's just absolute men against boys. So, yeah, look, I agree. Manu, Teddy, they're probably pod captains because they're not really setting the world on fire on SuperCoach the last few weeks, but this is such a game where they could go huge.
Yeah, we'll talk captains after a break coming up later in the podcast, so stick around for that. They're 2 names that are sure to feature. Just on that, the Roosters, they're hitting the form at the right time. I think the way I've looked at it, if they finish 5th or 6th, potentially more likely 6th or 7th, but if they win that finals week 1, and assuming just off ladder position at the moment, the Cowboys beat the Sharks, we could be looking at a Sharks-Roosters second week semi-final at Allianz. That's almost a home game for the Roosters again. So they're a real chance of making a prelim if they can just, keep up this form heading into the finals.
Yeah, it's funny. All year we really didn't rate the Roosters, and they were playing poorly all year, but they're starting to hit their stride right at the right time. Maybe Robinson had a plan. I don't know. I still want to see them beat a good team, and they'll put away the Tigers this week. I know they beat the Cowboys the other day, but I think they were well down on confidence. You'll beat the Tigers this week. Then they play the Melbourne Storm and South in the opening game at the new stadium. So that'll be a really good indicator as to where they are ahead of the semis.
Yeah, finals come a week early, Friday, September 2 at Allianz Stadium. Look, I want to talk about the Tigers quickly before we move on. You mentioned there that they were somewhat in the game against the Sharks. The scoreboard probably reflected the passage of play at full time, but there was a period there where they looked likely, and it was on the back of Amanu Brown. Now I'm looking here, $6.50, anytime try scorer again. He scores. He scored a couple of times already since he's made his return from England. $6.50, Tommy, you're going to get a look for your price. Gamble responsibly, but you know he's going to go. He just always takes it on.
Yeah, I don't hate it. And the Roosters, for all their attacking prowess, their defense isn't incredible this year, so it could happen. Tigers getting Coruscant next year. What happens to New Brown? Is he going somewhere else, or we don't know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he should stay there. He's a good utility player, can play 6, 7, 9, at a pinch 13 perhaps, but he's too good of a natural footy player, and maybe the Tigers not his best fit, but they've thrown him a lifeline, so good luck to him. He's making it count. Nothing else there for mine. I think a massive win to the Roosters there. The 22.5. Yeah, I'd be happily on the minus there Saturday night. Get out there to the SCG if you can. All right, Sunday afternoon footy. I've said here, one of the very few nothing games this weekend. Not really any implications on the top 8, top 4, none of that of this kind here. The Dragons at home, Wollongong, the venue here, up against the Titans. $1.55 the Dragons with topsport.com.au. The Titans, $2.45 on the road. What are we looking at here?
Mate, who would know? Who would know in this game? Every game with the Dragons goes down to the wire, and they're always low-quality affairs, to be honest. And then the Titans can't defend, so I don't know what is going to happen. I think if you own David Fifita, you're probably looking at another decent score. He played better the other day.
Yep.
Bo for Moore was great the other day. Titans actually look good in attack, which they can sometimes, but yeah, probably points, to be honest. So you do have any of these players, it might be good to play them this week.
Fifita, you mentioned him, a score of 85 last week, and I dare say 50% of those points would have come from that one run. Broke the line, 5 or 6 tackle busts, a try as well, and that's what he can do. And I mean, that's the promise that he's shown his whole career. He showed it he showed it plenty of times last year, but scored 17 tries last year. So we'd love to see more of that from David Fifita next year. This year, obviously not his best efforts on that front. Bo Fermor, I just want to go back to that. Is he going to play Origin next year? I'm getting in early because I was all over him this year, but I think he's got all the makings of a rep player, and versatility, he certainly has it.
Yeah, tough team to crack into because they won, but he's definitely... I think you were early on him, and you were right, because he's really good. He runs... When he scored the last try the other day, and I was kind of half watching. I saw a second rower going in to score, and I thought, is it for Fifita? But then he was just running too hard, so I knew it had to be for more because he just has to go. So, no, he is really good. And I actually think the Titans will get the win here. I think they might just be able to springboard from that win and have a bit of fun at the end of the year.
Bit of confidence there as well about the Titans, the Top Sport Titans. $2.45 outsiders. So Tommy going against the grain with that one. I know where he's going in this game, and it won't be against the grain. The Raiders, favourites, albeit in Newcastle, against the Knights. $1.32 here. The Raiders, the Knights outsiders $3.40. The line a flat 10. Raiders giving it away, and the Knights, well, they've had a rough week on and off the field. That man Ponga, he's just up to no good.
Well, I mean, you've bagged him out for years now, and this is your opportunity to, I guess, say that you told us so, because, yeah, it's not a good look. I don't know if there's any punishment being handed down yet, but, it's hard to imagine him keeping the captaincy after doing something like that, I think.
He shouldn't have had it in the first place, but anyway. No, look, I don't want to talk about what he's doing, but I can only comment for his on-field. He hasn't been good for... definitely this year. I know he had a couple of good games in Origin. But, in terms of the Knights, and in terms of his SuperCoach prospects as well, I mean, we spoke about him at the start of the year alongside the likes of Tedesco and Pappenhausen and potentially Travojevic, a pod option around those three, and just hasn't lived up to any of that, and he won't here. Raiders, there's still a slight top 8 chance, a narrow win last week over the Dragons. But Tommy, how's your heart? Because all of their games go down to the final 5 or 1 minute even. It must be making you go thin up top or even a little bit grey.
I'm already thin up top, but it's getting worse because of them. There would be some stats out there somewhere, which I'll probably have a look at after this podcast. Just how many games, are between either team 6 or under sort of thing, the margin. And looking at this game, on paper, Knights are really bad. We need to win to make the finals. But you just know it's still going to be... You're going to be there at 5:55 on Sunday afternoon sweating bullets. So, I don't know. Hope for the best. Joe Tarpanay is named, which is good for people who held him. I was silly and got rid of him, and I really am ruining that decision now. But,
yeah,
I mean, as long as his ribs are okay, you'd think he goes back to churning out 70s.
How's the bench look? I haven't looked at it in great detail, but Is he expected, do you think, just looking at the makeup of the bench, are we expecting him to play the minutes that he was? Because that's probably the knock. We know he's going to still play the same, but will he have this, 60 minutes that he was getting before the injury?
Bench is similar. There's two props, but they usually Tarpanay and Papali get sort of two bites at the cherry. But I guess the only risk factor could be if we're up by plenty, which doesn't happen often, but if we are, maybe he won't go back on. I don't know. But yeah, you'd be happy if you held him, I think.
All right, let's leave that game there. Raiders by plenty, and Tarpanay to go big at Tommy's expense. I just want to pick up a point you said there as well. You said you're going to do the research after the podcast. It's supposed to happen before. All right, we're going to cut to a break. On the other side, we'll talk some captains. And look, you said there's not that many options this week, or there's a couple of pod plays. We've got 4 or 5 or 6 that we're going to talk after the other side of this, and we're going to answer some of your questions as well.
Having a bet on sport this week? Top this.
Whether you're into cricket and curling or golf and greyhounds, Top Sport will let you on for plenty. And with literally hundreds of markets from your own backyard to the international stage, Top Sport has you well covered. So if you want to get the top odds every time, bet with Top Sport.
Top that. Download the app today. Top Sport. Feel the excitement.
Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly.
Yes, welcome back. SuperCoach365 podcast, proudly supported by the good folk at topsport.com.au. If you haven't already jumped on, do so, and then you hear that ad there. Speaking of golf and greyhounds, Tommy and I spent a day on the course last Sunday. A bit of fun off the field as we turned our eyes away from rugby league for a short moment. And Sunday afternoon, how good is it? Golf, a few beers, Capella by greyhounds, you can't beat it.
I was watching the final minutes of the Raiders-Dragons game on my phone. Gee, that was nerve-wracking. But, a good day. Do love my golf.
All right, let's have a look at the premiership market before we do talk captains. Penrith, we said there, $2.30 still to win the comp, and obviously that's with the theory or the hope that Luai and Cleary are going to come back with the same form that they had before their suspensions and injuries, respectively. Melbourne Storm back into second favourite, $6. The Sharks, $8. So Cowboys on the drift, $9.50. Souths, $9.50 as well. So a bit of value here about those in the other places in the top 4 around Penrith.
Yeah, I still think it's Penrith to lose somewhat. Once they get their players back, they'll be the clear team to beat. But Storm, they showed the other day that they might be getting back into some form. And I don't know, Cowboys, I wouldn't read too much into their loss last week. I still think on their day, they're an enigmatic team with all these young X-Factor players. Who knows what they could do.
Now, much to Tommy's dismay here, the Canberra Raiders to miss the top 8, $1.16. The Roosters still a chance of missing out as well, $7. But I want to pick up what you said earlier. Parramatta a chance to slide out of the finals race, $11. So even just a little fiver on that, Tommy, you wouldn't be disappointed.
Well, just Raiders, if they do win their last 3, which they're all very winnable games, they finish on 30 points, which generally gets you into the finals. It may not this year, but just going off that, I think it's worth a little play.
Raiders to make the top 8, $4. So Tommy maybe going that way. Of course, I think the NRLW kicks off this weekend as well. So if you do have a spare moment on the weekend, be sure to check that out. And if you are having a bet on the NRLW or the NRL, for that matter, gamble responsibly or Capella by Greyhounds. Tommy, let's talk some captains. Plenty of games that we can target here. Of course, the first one, probably most likely, that man Latrell Mitchell. It's hard to look past the Souths game with at least mentioning Latrell, and he's always going to be a captain option as long as he's there.
Yeah, I think given his scoring lately, which is just weekly over 100, you almost have to put at least the vice captain on him. And given the first game of the round, he's playing Thursday night, you'd have to go the vice captain. I don't think you straight captain someone, especially in this week being in the head-to-head finals. Yeah. I think you really got to be smart about where you put your captaincy, because if you're focusing on your head-to-head game, you got to hold your captaincy up a little bit and wait and see how you're going against your opponent.
Me personally, and I think doing this with you each Tuesday and throughout the course of the season, I haven't actually looked at my head-to-heads a hell of a lot this year. Probably is a good reason why I'm, only alive in one of my 7 leagues still. Well, that's the excuse I'm going for anyway, because I'm targeting the overall. My thinking is if I'm going good overall, there's a good chance I'm beating my opponent head-to-head. But no, exactly right. If ever there is time to take stock and maybe switch your perspective, this and next would be the week to do that. Next game here, which there is an obvious captain options. Jeez, I can't get that word out. Captain options. Scotty Drinkwater, Valentine Holmes against the Warriors. Look, that just looks like a good thing.
Yeah, I'd probably side with Drinkwater there. Maybe I saw him against the Bulldogs a few weeks ago, and he was looking dynamic sort of late in that game. So, yeah, maybe Drinkwater, and he's very scary not owning him.
Sorry, I'm just sipping on my Tui's new. Valentine Holmes, you're not afraid of Val, the goal kicking? I think there could be a couple of goals he gets this weekend.
He's just such a natural scorer on SuperCoach. He just can score points fast.
Speaking of, what about Cameron Munster going to Brisbane? We know he loves playing at Suncorp Stadium. He's got a 77 point per game average there at the home of the Queensland Maroons. He's always an option. Storm favourites here again, so he's going to have his hands on the footy.
Yeah, he will, and we've seen how good he can play up there, and the Storm over the years have put away Brisbane, so he's an option, but probably won't be going with him personally.
Nicho Hynes, always an option as well at Brookvale. Look, it's probably not the easiest game, and at 11.5, I think it's too much. I don't know if they cover that.
Is he just the default, though? Like, I feel like I just rest the captaincy on him every week almost, just because he touches the ball more than any other player.
Yeah.
He's almost good for at least an 80 he just finds points. I don't even know how he does it half the time.
He just got to turn up, get out on that field, and he's got an 80. His tackle busts and his offloads are incredible. I mean, and I was watching the Sharks very closely last week for our head-to-head. Sorry, in another head-to-head in draft. But watching that, he has so many hit-ups. He's the biggest hog. But that is perfect for SuperCoach. I mean, I think I said to you, he might even stifle their attack at times. But SuperCoaches, they just look on and licking their lips at that.
Yeah, exactly right. He just gets his hands on the ball. He takes runs. He kind of plays like Joey Manu does when he plays fullback. Nicho Hynes does when he plays 7. So he's always one of the biggest options for captaincy. What about Roosters Tigers? We mentioned it before. Teddy and Manu, the obvious options there. And the game does scream points. And who would you probably lean to out of those two?
I think given the occasion, position on the field, and I mean, rugby league loves stories. We've said it a couple of times this year. Could you see Tedesco not scoring a double against the Tigers this week? I think it would be the perfect send-off to the SCG. He's actually my captain at the moment, Tedesco. I'm happy to have it on him this weekend.
Yeah, I think it would be a pod play. I know there's a lot of reasons there for it, but there's a lot of reasons for it last week, and they got 47, and they scored 40 points. So I don't know what really happened last week. Maybe it's just one of those things, but maybe a little bit of a risk, but I do agree on paper there's a chance. I got one super pod captain for you on Sunday afternoon. If you're chasing a big score or something and you want to win your head-to-head, for David Fafita against the Dragons, he could get 100. Obviously could get 30, but I don't know. If you're going for broke on Sunday, maybe David Fafita is a real roughie.
I mean, it helps the fact that Tedesco is still a high-ceiling player, plays late on Saturday night, so you can sort of get a good look at your own matchups late in the week. And again, you're probably not targeting games beyond Fafita, you wouldn't think. Maybe Joey Tarpanay, again, a pod play if he's playing. But again, first up from injury, it's no sure thing.
No, and it may be reverse logic there. If you're not chasing high points, you just need to bag a 70 to win your league. Maybe then you'd look at a Tarpanay or a Isaiah Papali'i, something like that. So yeah, options are plenty this week.
Options are plenty indeed. Now, we'll try and get our captain's call out sometime on Thursday. If you're listening to this, check out Instagram at SuperCoach365. Has been a hectic week, so if you miss it or we miss it, apologies in advance. Tommy, let's talk some questions. When some of these questions might pertain to captaincy this weekend, so we might even cover off on some of those talking points. All of these via our Instagram, as we say there, at SuperCoach365. Usually chuck up this on the story the night at which we record the pod, so be sure to check that out next week. And of course, we're coming to a close very soon, but get in before it's too late. Okay, here, AT Open 1 says, Manu or Murray, who is more important for head-to-head players this weekend?
I think Manu, just against the Tigers. He could go massive if he gets a couple of tries, which he easily could do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking at this week, looking at the final couple of weeks, I mean, it's hard to go past Murray. You know he's going to score a 70, and particularly that last game, how often do we see him and Radley take that personal battle? I mean, it's going to be, it's a beat up. But we're going to hear about it, and Murray's he's going to deliver. So, I mean, looking at, again, isolation this week, you'd say Manu. I think a couple of weeks, maybe I'll be going Cameron Murray. Bosco Harris, 14. He says, when can we draft for next year?
Well, I think the game usually opens late January, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
not until then, I suppose. It's still a while.
Just on you, I want to put you on the spot here. Who's your number one pick for next year? Going off what you've seen this year alone, would it be Nathan Cleary? Would it be Nicho Hynes?
I think Nicho Hynes, honestly,
Wow.
I'm not saying he's the best player in rugby league, but just on SuperCoach, he's just gets high scores so often. I mean, Turbo could be smoky, but is he going to be fit? It's too risky.
I would say Hynes. I think we did our mid-season draft review, like if we're doing a draft at round 13, I think we did put Hynes on top, but could you leave Cleary there? I don't know. Hynes is probably going to lose that dual position next year as well, so that may be a slight knock on him. My boy Ryan Pappenhausen. I don't know. Anyway.
Perhaps you're right. I did forget about him, but again, there's so many injury-prone fullbacks, isn't there? And Hynes seems to be pretty durable.
He's rugged. S. Goddard 6 says here, last reserve, bruz. What are you thinking? Appy, Brainto, Ronaldo Mulatalo. Cheers.
Who's he putting his last reserve on?
Yeah, one of those. I love that. Last reserve, bruz.
Ronaldo's been poor lately, but he could score against Manly. Appy, haven't really been following Appy. I think you own him, Ryan, so you might be able to tell me more. And same with Toto. I don't own him, so look, I can't really offer much insight here. What about you?
Appy's been flying. I don't know. I don't even think this is a question. I think it's a no-brainer. Okay. Appy, I mean, have a look now while I talk, but I think he scored a couple of tries in recent times. He's averaged at least, I'm going to say, close to 70, if not higher. I think there was parts of the year where we spoke about which hookers do we want to finish with, and it looked like everyone was going Grant and Cook. I mean, I've been more than happy to hold Appy. I think he's been doing a great job.
No, he has. I'm looking at his scoring now. You know, he's rarely let you down. 85 last week. He got 107 a few weeks ago. I think a lot of people maybe were turned off by his minutes with Mitch Kenny often on the bench, but he's playing 80 a lot of weeks, or at least 70. So, yeah, no, he's doing a great job. And going back to that question, you'd have to go with Appy.
Just on that, I did read somewhere, I think Jermaine Hopgood expected to get some minutes this week for Penrith. So keep that in mind. He is sort of a lock and more of a back rower, but can play a bit of hooker as well, Hopgood. So he may give Appy a spell if that game against Souths gets out of reach. Okay, another one here from Zelez_88. He's asked the same question. When does the draft start for next year? What are we talking about draft now? We've still got 2 rounds of this year to get through.
I don't know. Maybe they're lowly ranked and they look. I mean, sometimes when I have a shit day on SuperCoach, I look forward to next year. So, yeah, a long time still, unfortunately, guys.
Mate, we haven't even got through this year yet. Okay, Dale Weeks 26. Do I trust in that Hughes and Tarpanay will play, or use my last 2 trades and sell them both in head-to-head? So this sort of comes back to the mold we said before, juggling your priorities at this time of year. It can get a little bit tricky, as you might be able to hear these sirens blaring behind me.
It's a tough question. I think Tarpanay will play. I think it's just too important of a game for Canberra, so I'd keep him. Hughes, I haven't heard anything to the contrary that he's not playing. I just really wait until the last minute with these trades. 2 trades at this time of year is pretty good. I try to hold them.
It's a luxury, really. Blake's Brushworks, what's your prediction for the next NRL player? Yeah, I don't know if we can read that one out. Jack Murdoch says here, better to nuff a non-playing centre wing option and upgrade Max King to Murray, or go Isaac Tungo to Jesse Ramian and Tamalolo to, I assume, David Fafita. So upgrade enough centre wing or go big in the forwards. I'd probably be going towards Murray looking at that.
Yeah, I like your King to Murray. I don't think Tago to Ramian's sort of sideways, and Lolo to Fafita is definitely sideways. So yeah, I think get Murray in.
Rightio, let's finish with this one. Brendan Pearson. Is Dave Fafita a pod for the run home? In terms of a pod, I think traditionally we've said 10%, 15% or less ownership. Bring it up, Tommy. What's his ownership percentage? In terms of a pod, I know he was a popular trade in Target after Origin, or around that Origin period, of course, because he wasn't in the Maroon squad. But is he a pod as such? I'm not sure. And the Titans, as you say, every chance to feature Fifita in an attacking sense this weekend against the Dragons. So not the worst shout.
Yeah, look, Pod, just looking at his ownership now, 10% owned. So,
Okay.
so at this time of the year, 10% is a Pod, I would say. And the other day, 85 points. They play the Dragons. I don't think their games are that hard to finish the year, but every game's kind of hard for the Titans, I guess. But I'll say yes. I think he is a decent Pod. If you're probably chasing points at this time of year to build your rank up, he's a high-standing player, so why not?
Yeah, he's definitely someone that can go big, and I think that's what you're looking for this time of year. I went to Olakawatu, and I mean, look how that's turned out. All right, Tommy, we're going to leave it there. Actually, before we do, of course, round 23 this week, round 24 next. On our round 25 podcast, we're going to do our SuperCoach Player of the Year awards. We did this last year. It was a bit of fun, so look out for this in the next fortnight or so. We might start pushing this out on the socials, and not just your typical, fullback, centre wing of the year. We'll have a bit of fun, cheapie of the year, and coaches player of the year, I guess. We'll throw in some other awards as well.
Yeah, and if you want to request any awards, maybe just send us a message. We can do something for that. And no trades this week from me. One left.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about trades, didn't we? Because I just assumed that we had none left. You've got one left, but not running it, and myself, much the same. So, holding on for dear life at this point. Nathan Cleary's sitting on my bench there, unused. Rightio, that's us. Round 23. Got through a little bit there. Looking forward to the footy this weekend.
Yeah, mate, 3 weeks to go. You can count the games down. It's getting exciting. Hopefully top 1,000 for me.
Keep on pushing. Green Arrows, let's see him if you are playing head-to-head. Classic or draft. Good luck in your leagues this weekend. Tommy's into a prelim final. He's going to go big at SuperCoach365. That's where you'll find us on YouTube as well. Hit the subscribe button.